Close your eyes and imagine standing alone on a vast Roman battlefield long after the clash of swords has faded. The sky is heavy with dark clouds, and a steady rain begins to fall, washing over shields, armor, and silent earth. There are no cries, no marching feet, only the soft rhythm of droplets against metal and mud. Tonight, we journey back in time, not to witness glory or chaos, but to rest inside the quiet aftermath. Let the rain on ancient ground guide you into deep sleep, where history becomes calm, distant, and beautifully still. The battle has already ended. No horns sound now, no orders are shouted, no feet march across the field. Only rain remains, falling steadily from a dark Roman sky. It taps softly against iron helmets left where they fell, seeps into leather straps, and fills the shallow prints of thousands of boots pressed into the earth. The battlefield breathes again, slowly, quietly, as if relieved to be alone. Settles over everything. It blurs the sharp edges of war. Blood darkens the soil beneath the water, thinning, spreading, disappearing into mud. Broken spears lie half-buried, shields rest face down, their painted emblems dulled by wet earth. The storm does not care which legion stood here, or who retreated, or who never rose again. It simply falls patient and equal. This is how most Roman battlefields truly looked. Not frozen in heroic charge, not filled with motion, but quiet, abandoned, heavy with weather and time. The clouds hang low, pressing against the hills. Ow! Thunder rolls distantly, not as a warning, but as background. Far away, slow, uninterested. Wind moves through the field in gentle waves, brushing tall grass and loose fabric still caught on broken armor. Somewhere, a tent flap flutters softly, torn but standing. The Roman army has withdrawn to higher ground or to a temporary camp beyond the ridge. What remains here is not strategy or glory, but objects, evidence. Silence. A helmet lies on its side, rain collecting inside its curved shape. Drops strike the metal with a hollow sound, slow and rhythmic. Inside, water rises millimeter by millimeter until it spills gently into the mud beside it. No one is there to notice. Nearby, a gladius rests where it slipped from a tired hand. Its blade is streaked dark, its edge dulled by contact with armor and bone. Rain washes along the groove of the blade, carrying rust already beginning its work. By morning, the process will be irreversible. Roman battles were fast, violent, and exhausting, but their aftermath was long and quiet. This moment after the shouting stops is when the land begins to reclaim what happened upon it. The rain softens the ground further. Each drop presses small craters into the mud, smoothing sharp impressions. Footprints lose their shape. Wagon tracks fill with water. The earth begins its slow work of forgetting. Beyond the field, the Roman camp is barely visible through the rain. Fires burn low beneath leather awnings. Soldiers sit silently, eating, drying what they can. Their armor is stacked, wet and heavy. Cloaks hang from posts, dripping steadily. No one speaks much. The body is too tired, the mind too full. Roman soldiers lived with this silence often. Campaigns were long. Battles were rare moments within weeks or months of waiting, marching, building and enduring weather like this. Rain was familiar, mud was expected. Discomfort was constant. The storm deepens slightly. Rain grows heavier, striking shields with dull, muted impacts. The sound spreads evenly across the field, blending into one continuous hush. It becomes difficult to tell where one object ends and another begins. Everything merges into a single wet landscape. In the distance, a raven lands on a broken standard pole. Its feathers darken as rain settles into them. It tilts its head, observing without judgment. Then it waits. Animals always return before people do. The Roman battlefield is not empty because it lacks meaning. It is empty because its purpose has passed. What remains now is time. Slow, indifferent time, working quietly beneath falling rain. Water runs gently downhill, finding old ditches and shallow depressions dug hurriedly before the fight. It follows the shapes carved by Roman engineers earlier that day. Even now, structure guides the flow. A discarded shield floats briefly in a widening puddle before settling again. Its wooden core swells as it absorbs water. The leather facing loosens. By dawn, it will be useless. Roman equipment was durable, but not immortal. Rain, rot, and neglect defeated more armor than enemies ever did. Thunder rolls again, farther away this time. The sound is long and low, stretched across the hills. It does not echo sharply. The rain absorbs it. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a centurion walks slowly along the edge of camp, cloak pulled tight. He listens to the storm, counts supplies in his head, thinks about tomorrow's march. The battlefield behind him already feels distant. This is how history usually ends, not with speeches, but with weather. Rain continues to fall. It erases urgency. It lowers voices. It presses the world into stillness. The Roman battlefield becomes just land again, wet, quiet land beneath a dark sky. Nothing moves quickly. Nothing demands attention. And in that calm, the past begins to settle into the earth. The rain does not hurry. It falls at its own pace, steady and unbroken, as if the sky has decided to remain here for a while. Drops strike iron, leather and earth with the same quiet persistence. The battlefield no longer feels like a place of conflict. It feels like a place being slowly returned to something older and simpler. Mud thickens beneath the rain. What was trampled hard by marching feet now softens, loosening its grip on the shapes pressed into it. Footprints blur at the edges. The sharp outlines of sandals and boots become shallow impressions, then vague shadows, then nothing at all. The land does not remember individuals for long. A fallen peeler lies diagonally across a shallow trench. Its wooden shaft is already darkened by water, the iron tip half submerged. Rain runs along the grain of the wood, collecting briefly before dripping into the trench below. This weapon was thrown once, with force and intent. Now it rests without purpose, slowly surrendering to rot. Nearby, a Roman shield leans against a low mound of earth, forgotten in the confusion of retreat. Its red paint has dulled to brown beneath the rain. The emblem at its center, once bright and symbolic, is barely visible now, softened by water and dirt. The shield's weight presses it deeper into the mud, and it tilts slightly, as if growing tired of standing. This is the part of warfare rarely spoken about. The hours after, the waiting, the silence. Rain gathers in small streams, following the lowest points of the field. It finds old furrows cut by farmers long before the army arrived. It fills them gently, without resistance. Water does not care that men fought here. It obeys older rules. Farther away, the remains of a temporary Roman trench curve across the landscape. Dug quickly, reinforced with earth and timber, it now fills slowly with rainwater. The sharp edges soften. The walls slump inward. What took hours to build will take days to disappear. The Roman army was skilled at shaping land, but nature always reclaimed it. Camps rose and fell. Roads lasted longer. Battlefields faded fastest of all. Beyond the field, the low hum of the camp continues. It is muted by distance and rain. A pot clinks softly against another. Someone coughs. A fire crackles beneath a shelter. These sounds do not travel far. The storm absorbs them quickly, wrapping everything in damp quiet. Soldiers sit close to fires, armor removed, bodies steaming faintly in the cool air. Wet wool hangs heavy from shoulders. Hands work slowly, rubbing rust from metal, tightening straps, checking buckles. No one rushes. There is nowhere to go tonight. Rain drums gently on tent leather. The sound is steady, almost soothing. It reminds the men that the sky is doing what it always does. Campaigns adjust around weather, not the other way around. Back on the field, the rain finds darker patches of soil where blood soaked in earlier. These areas absorb water differently, thickening into darker mud. The contrast fades slowly. By morning, it will be hard to tell where bodies once lay. Roman commanders understood this. They knew that battlefields did not remain visible for long. That is why monuments were built elsewhere. That is why memory relied on stories, not soil. A broken helmet rests near a shallow depression where water collects. The dent along its side catches the light faintly when lightning flashes far away. Rain fills the helmet completely now, overflowing its rim in slow intervals. It becomes a small temporary vessel for the sky. Thunder murmurs again, distant and low. It does not demand attention. It simply reminds the land that the storm is wide and patient. Somewhere near the edge of the field, a horse stands tethered to a stake, head lowered. Its coat is slick with rain. It shifts its weight slowly, hooves sinking slightly into the mud. It breathes out in a long, steady rhythm. The animal has no understanding of victory or loss, only fatigue and weather. The battlefield continues to empty itself of meaning. Objects lose their urgency, shapes lose their definition. Everything slows. Rain pools at the base of a fallen standard pole. The fabric once attached to it is gone, taken back to camp or lost in retreat. The pole leans slightly, its base sinking deeper with each passing minute. By dawn, it may lie flat. Roman wars stretched across years, even decades. Individual battles were brief interruptions. What followed them, marching, rebuilding, enduring, was the real experience. The rain thickens briefly, then steadies again. It does not escalate. It does not end, it simply continues. Wind moves lightly across the field, pushing ripples through puddles. The surface breaks, then settles. The land responds quietly, without resistance. Nothing here asks to be remembered. And yet, this is where history truly rests, not in speeches or triumphs, but in wet earth beneath falling rain, slowly absorbing the weight of human effort and letting it sink away. The rain settles into a quieter rhythm now, softer but no less steady. The sky remains heavy, layered with dark clouds that seem in no hurry to move on. Water continues its slow work across the field, threading through grass, collecting in depressions, sliding along the curves of abandoned armor. What once echoed with shouted commands now holds only the sound of rainfall and distant wind. A Roman scutum lies flat on its back, its curved surface forming a shallow basin. Water pools in the center where the bronze boss rises slightly above the wood. Each raindrop strikes the metal with a muted tap, small and hollow. Over time, the repeated sound blends into the greater hush of the storm. Beside it, a leather sandal remains half buried in mud. Its straps are twisted, one torn loose. The print of the foot that once wore it is gone now, softened by water and pressed back into the earth. The ground shows no preference for who walked upon it. The field stretches outward in quiet greys and browns. Spear shafts lie scattered like fallen branches. A broken cartwheel tilts against a mound of churned soil, its wooden spokes dark and swollen. The axle nearby is cracked clean through. Rain fills the hollow center of the wheel, reflecting the dull sky above. Farther downhill, runoff gathers into a slow-moving ribbon of brown water. It carries small fragments with it. Splinters of wood, scraps of fabric, loose iron fittings. The current is gentle but persistent. It does not rush. It simply continues downward, following gravity as it always has. In the Roman camp beyond the ridge, the rhythm of life continues quietly beneath canvas and leather. A soldier adjusts the pegs of a tent, pressing them deeper into softened ground. Another feeds small pieces of wood into a sheltered fire, coaxing it to remain alive in the damp air. Smoke drifts sideways before rising, thin and pale against the dark clouds. Armor is laid out carefully beneath cover. Each piece is white with cloth, water removed before rust can take hold too deeply. The men work without conversation. They know the routine well. Rain is an enemy that never tires, but it can be slowed. Back on the field, a long trench carved earlier in the day is nearly full now. Water laps gently against its edges. The earth along its sides begins to crumble inward, collapsing in small sections. What was defensive structure becomes part of the landscape again. The rain presses down tall grass around the edges of the field. Blades bend beneath the weight, then slowly rise again when gusts of wind pass through. The movement is subtle, almost like breathing. A fallen banner lies twisted in mud, its fabric heavy and indistinct. Whatever symbol it once carried is no longer clear. Colors bleed into one another. Thread loosens. The rain does not preserve symbols, it blurs them. Lightning flickers faintly behind distant hills, not sharp enough to illuminate the field completely. For a brief moment, outlines become clearer. Shields, helmets, uneven ground, then fade back into shadow. The storm does not seek drama. It simply exists. A raven hops closer to the center of the field, cautious and patient. It pauses near a pile of discarded gear, tilting its head as if assessing the stillness. The rain dampens its feathers, but does not drive it away. The battlefield has shifted from human space to natural one. The Roman army will return at first light to retrieve what remains useful. They will collect weapons, salvage armor, bury their dead where they can, but for now, the land is unattended. Water seeps deeper into the soil, darkening it further. The scent of wet earth grows stronger, blending with iron and trampled grass. The smell is heavy but not sharp. It settles low, close to the ground. In the camp, a centurion walks slowly along the perimeter ditch. His boots sink slightly with each step. He checks the alignment of stakes, the depth of trenches, the firmness of the earthworks. Rain has softened everything, but nothing has failed. That is enough. He pauses briefly, listening. Beyond the storm, there is no movement, no marching, no distant horn, only rain. On the battlefield, a helmet finally tips over as the mud beneath it gives way. It falls softly, barely making a sound. Water spills out and merges with a nearby puddle. Its brief roll as a vessel ends. This is how the hours pass after conflict. Not in tension, but in quiet erosion. The sharp edges of violence wear down. The land absorbs the marks left upon it. The rain continues without emotion, without preference. It falls on Roman and enemy alike, on shield and spear, on trench and hill. And slowly, steadily the battlefield becomes simply earth again. The rain eases slightly, though it never fully stops. It softens into a steady, patient fall, thin streams sliding from cloud to ground without urgency. The battlefield remains under its quiet attention. Every object darkened, every surface damp and heavy. Mist begins to form low over the field, rising where warm ground meets cool air. It drifts slowly, gathering in shallow hollows and along the edges of trenches. Shapes blur further now. Distance becomes uncertain. The land folds inward, becoming smaller, quieter. A Roman cloak lies spread across the mud, its wall thick with water. The weight of the rain presses it flat, its edges slowly sinking. The fabric once warmed a living body. Now it absorbs the cold instead, holding it silently. Nearby, the curved rim of a shield barely breaks the surface of a puddle. Water ripples gently as rain continues to strike it. Beneath the surface, mud clings to wood and leather alike. The shield is no longer an object of defense. It is simply part of the field. The earth itself begins to settle. Where it was torn and churned by feet and wheels, it slowly collapses inward, smoothing itself. Small ridges slump, sharp edges round off. The battlefield reshapes itself quietly, without direction or memory. In the distance, the Roman camp remains steady. Tents hold firm beneath the rain. Fires glow faintly beneath shelter, their light barely visible through mist and darkness. Inside, soldiers sit close together, drying what they can, speaking little. Fatigue presses heavier than fear now. One man carefully removes his helmet, setting it upside down near the fire. Steam rises briefly as rainwater evaporates. He wipes the interior slowly, methodically. The action is familiar, practiced countless times before. He does not look toward the battlefield. There is nothing there for him now. Back on the field, a shallow depression fills completely and overflows, sending a thin stream downhill. It passes through grass, around broken wood, carrying fine sediment with it. The water chooses its path quietly, reshaping the ground with gentle persistence. A cluster of arrows lies scattered near the base of a slope. Their shafts are dark and slick, fletching pressed flat against the wood. Rain strips away any remaining stiffness. Feathers lose their shape, collapsing into useless softness. Lightning flashes again, briefly illuminating the far ridge. For an instant, the outline of the Roman camp becomes clearer. Rows of tents, the darker line of a ditch, faint movement near a fire. Then the light fades and everything returns to shadow and rain. The battlefield holds no voices now, not even echoes remain. Sound does not linger here. The rain absorbs it all. The smell of wet leather, iron and soil thickens. It settles close to the ground, clinging to the air. It is not sharp or overwhelming, just present, steady, unavoidable. Somewhere beneath the mud, a broken blade is completely submerged. Only the faintest suggestion of its shape remains above the surface. Rain continues to press earth over it, layer by layer. By morning, it may be gone entirely. Roman wars left scars across continents, but individual fields healed quickly. Grass returned, tracks faded. Even mass graves sank into the land, marked only by subtle differences in soil and growth. The storm continues its slow work. Rain strikes, seeps, flows and settles. Nothing resists it. Nothing escapes it. The battlefield, once a place of movement and intent, now exists only as terrain. Wet, quiet, ordinary. And under the falling rain, history slips downward into the earth, becoming part of the land itself. The night deepens, though it is difficult to measure time beneath the clouds. The rain continues its quiet descent, steady and unwavering, as if it has forgotten when it began. The battlefield no longer feels like a place where men struggled. It feels ancient already, absorbed into darkness. Water now gathers in every hollow. The ground has grown heavy, saturated, reluctant to hold its shape. Where boots once pressed hard impressions into the soil, the outlines blur and soften. The land is patient. It accepts everything given to it. A Roman gladius lies half buried near a patch of flattened grass. Its short blade, once polished to reflect sunlight, is dulled by a thin film of mud. Rain taps against the exposed metal in small rhythmic notes. There is no resistance in the sound. The sword does not shine, it simply rests. Further along the slope, the remnants of a wooden barricade lean awkwardly, stakes driven into the earth at uneven angles. Rain runs down their splintered surfaces, tracing the grain of the wood before dripping into the mud below. Each drop joins another, building small rivulets that slowly widen. slowly widen. The mist thickens, rolling low and quiet across the field. It drapes over abandoned armor and discarded shields, softening edges, muting shapes. What was sharp becomes rounded. What was distinct becomes uncertain. Near the center of the field, a Roman standard pole lies snapped in two. The eagle that once crowned it is missing, perhaps carried back to camp, perhaps lost in the confusion before the storm began. Only the plainwood remains, soaked and darkened, its fibers beginning to swell. The rain does not discriminate. It falls evenly on fragments of Roman gear and on the remnants of their opponents. Shields of different shapes lie side by side, equally submerged. The storm does not recognize allegiances. Beyond the ridge, the Roman camp is quieter now. Fires burn lower, fires burn lower. Some soldiers sleep, despite the damp air, cloaks pulled tightly around them. Others sit awake, staring into embers, listening to the steady percussion of rain against canvas. The rhythm is hypnotic, unchanging. A watchman stands near the outer ditch, his posture rigid but relaxed in stillness. Rain beads on his helmet and runs down the curve of his cheek guard. He hears nothing beyond the storm. No movement across the field, no approach, only the distant rumble of thunder, softer now, softer now. Back on the battlefield, the shallow trench carved earlier has completely filled. Its edges have collapsed inward, smoothing its outline. By morning, it will resemble nothing more than a gentle dip in the earth. A cart axle sinks deeper into mud as the ground beneath it loosens. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it tilts until one end disappears below the surface. Rain covers the rest. The transformation is gradual but certain. Grass along the perimeter begins to lift again where the weight of water lessens. Droplets cling to each blade, catching faint glimmers of distant lightning. For a brief moment, the field sparkles softly before darkness swallows the light. The battlefield feels smaller now. The storm has wrapped it in a narrow world of sound and shadow. There is no horizon beyond the mist, only the immediate presence of rain and earth and wrath. Somewhere unseen, water continues to travel downhill, carving thin channels through the churned soil. It carries away fine particles, redistributing them quietly. The marks of struggle fade further. Time passes without announcement. There are no drums now, no horns, no shouted Latin commands. The only rhythm is rainfall. The gladius sinks a little deeper. The broken barricade leans a little further. The shield's painted surface loses more of its color as water seeps through cracks in the wood. By the darkest hour of the night, the battlefield has nearly surrendered its identity. It is no longer a site of victory or defeat. It is simply wet ground beneath a patient sky, and the rain continues, soft and constant, washing history into silence. The rain shows no sign of ending. It settles into the land as if it intends to stay until everything has been softened, muted, and made equal. The battlefield breathes slowly beneath it, rising and falling with the quiet movement of water and mist. Somewhere near the far edge of the field, a discarded helmet rests upside down. Rain fills its hollow, drop by drop, until the water reaches the rim. When it overflows, the excess spills gently into the mud, carrying with it traces of soot and dirt. The helmet no longer protects anything. It has become a small basin for the storm. The air smells heavy now, wet soil, iron, and damp leather blending into something earthy and deep. It is the smell of rain soaking into memory. Each breath feels slower, fuller, as though the night itself encourages stillness. The wind stirs briefly, just enough to ripple the surface of puddles scattered across the field. Concentric circles spread outward, intersecting with others, forming patterns that dissolve as quickly as they appear. Nothing lasts long here. Everything is temporary. A tattered cloak clings to the ground, its fabric darkened and heavy. It flutters weakly when the wind passes, then settles again, pressed flat by water. The folds that once moved with a soldier's stride are now fixed in place, shaped by rain instead of motion. The distant hills are barely visible through the mist. Their outlines soften and blur, blending into the low clouds above them. Thunder murmurs far away, not sharp or threatening, but distant and tired, as though even the sky is winding down. Back toward the camp, a sentry shifts his weight from one foot to the other. Mud pulls gently at his boots, reluctant to let go. He exhales slowly, watching his breath disappear into the damp air. The storm dulls his thoughts. The world feels small, contained within the circle of torchlight and rain. Here, on the battlefield, water continues its quiet work. It fills grooves cut by wheels and hooves, rounding their edges. It seeps into cracks in wood and leather, loosening bindings and softening seams. The marks of urgency fade, replaced by the calm persistence of the natural world. A broken spear shaft lies parallel to the slope of the land. Rain traces its length, following the grain, gathering at the splintered end before dripping away. The wood swells slightly, fibers expanding as they drink in moisture. Even broken things continue to change. Insects shelter beneath leaves and stones, waiting for the storm to pass. Their presence is subtle, nearly imperceptible, yet it reminds the land that life continues quietly even after conflict has ended. The soundscape narrows further. Individual drops merge into a steady hush. Thunder becomes an occasional low vibration rather than a distinct sound. Everything blends into one continuous atmosphere, wrapping the senses in repetition. Time loses its edges. Minutes stretch, indistinguishable from one another. The night does not progress, it simply exists. The battlefield rests inside it, suspended between what has happened and what will come. A shield half submerged in a shallow pool tilts slightly as water shifts beneath it. Its painted emblem, once bold, now appears washed and faded. The colors bleed softly into one another, their meaning dissolving into abstraction. The soil beneath the surface cools as rain penetrates deeper layers. Worms retreat downward, away from saturation, creating tiny tunnels that will later help the land dry. Even unseen, the earth adjusts. From the camp, a low cough carries briefly through the rain before being swallowed. No response follows. The sound disappears as though it never existed. Mist thickens again, rolling gently across the field in slow waves. It curls around objects, obscuring them momentarily before drifting on. Shapes appear and vanish, encouraging the mind to let go of certainty. The battlefield no longer feels tense. It feels tired. The energy of movement has drained away, replaced by heaviness and calm. Rain continues to fall, each drop indistinguishable from the last. There is no urgency in it, no climax, just continuation. And as the night presses on, the land settles deeper into stillness, held gently beneath the sound of rain, waiting without expectation. The night holds steady, unhurried, as if it has all the time it needs. Rain keeps falling in the same patient rhythm, neither stronger nor weaker, simply present. The battlefield remains quiet beneath it, surrendered to the slow work of water and darkness. A shallow stream has formed where the ground dips, threading its way across the field. It moves lazily, guided by gravity alone, carrying thin trails of silt along its edges. Small fragments of straw and grass drift with it, turning gently before settling again. The stream makes no sound of its own. It only deepens the hush. The stones scattered across the field glisten faintly when lightning flashes far away. For a moment, their wet surfaces reflect pale light, then return to shadow. The flashes come rarely now, distant and restrained, like echoes of a storm that has already spent its energy. Near the center of the field, a fallen shield finally settles flat as the mud beneath it loosens. The movement is subtle, almost imperceptible, but it marks the end of resistance. Water slides smoothly over its surface, erasing the last sharp lines of dried paint. The air cools further. Rain feels heavier, not because it falls harder, but because the ground can no longer absorb it quickly. The earth sighs under the weight, compacting slightly, holding the moisture close. Beyond the battlefield, the Roman camp is almost entirely still. Fires have dimmed to glowing embers. Canvas tents sag under the rain, their surfaces dark and heavy. Inside, soldiers sleep, breathing slowly, lulled by the constant sound against fabric and earth. A lone torch flickers near the camp's edge, its flame shrinking and swelling as raindrops strike it. Each time it threatens to go out, it persists, though weaker than before. Its light barely reaches the field, casting soft, uncertain shadows. On the battlefield, metal grows colder. Same. Helmets, buckles, and blades lose the warmth they held earlier in the evening. Rain draws heat away, leaving everything touched by it cool and still. A leather strap, once part of a harness, lies stretched across the mud. It absorbs water slowly, darkening inch by inch by inch. The fibers soften, becoming more pliable, less resistant. Even materials shaped by human hands return to a more natural state. The mist thins briefly, revealing the gentle slope of the land. The field looks smoother now, less chaotic. The storm has edited it carefully, removing harsh lines and rough textures. What remains is a quiet landscape, almost peaceful. A distant owl calls from beyond the hills, its sound muted by rain but still distinct. The call echoes once, then fades. No answer follows. The night closes around the silence again. Water continues to move beneath the surface, seeping into lower layers of soil. It shifts small stones and grains of sand, rearranging them subtly. The battlefield is being rewritten, not erased, but transformed. A spearhead protrudes slightly from the mud, its edge dulled by moisture. Rain gathers along its length, then drips from the tip in slow, deliberate intervals. Each drop falls, disappears, and is replaced by another. Time continues without markers. There is no signal to announce the passing hours. The storm has flattened time into a single, continuous moment. The smell of wet earth grows richer, deeper. It fills the air completely, pushing away the memory of smoke and iron. The land asserts itself again, quietly reclaiming its space. Mist begins to settle closer to the ground, hugging the surface of the field. It moves slowly, like breath, rising and falling in shallow waves. The battlefield, once defined by movement and noise, now exists only as a place of rest. Nothing demands attention. Nothing calls for action. Rain keeps falling, soft and unbroken, and the night holds everything gently, without judgment, without urgency, allowing the world to drift towards stillness. The night stretches onward, uninterrupted. Rain continues its quiet, even descent, falling steadily across the battlefield, pressing against the land with patience rather than force. Everything is soaked, muted, and softened under its influence. The storm shows no urgency, only persistence, and the earth responds in kind. A small shallow depression has formed near the center of the field, water pooling in it and reflecting the faint glow of distant lightning. Each droplet strikes the surface with tiny ripples, concentric circles spreading slowly outward before merging with the surrounding puddles. The effect is mesmerizing, hypnotic, a quiet rhythm that dominates the senses. Nearby, a tattered cloak lies flat against the mud. Its edges curl slightly under the weight of water, and the fabric sags where it once wrapped around a soldier's body. Each droplet presses it further into the soil, softening the fibers and darkening the threads. Even the smallest movement seems impossible now. The cloak has surrendered to the wet earth. A helmet rests upside down in a hollow, rain filling its interior inch by inch by inch. Water gathers, spills gently over the rim, and seeps into the mud beneath. Its hollowed curve becomes a mirror for the night sky, dark clouds reflected in a pool of collected rain. The helmet is no longer armor. It is part of the landscape, passive and silent. The mist rolls in closer, curling over shallow trenches and scattered gear. Shapes blur and fade, shadows stretching into indistinction. Broken spears and discarded shields appear and disappear intermittently as the fog drifts. What was once sharp and defined becomes uncertain, softened by both rain and mist. A shallow stream traces its path along the slope, carrying away fine sediment and tiny fragments of wood and cloth. It moves lazily, barely audible, guided only by gravity. The stream does not hurry. It does not pause. It simply continues, reshaping the land in imperceptible ways, smoothing rough edges left behind by men and animals alike. The air smells of wet earth and iron, mixed with faint traces of decaying leather and wood. The scent is heavy, filling the senses with a calm insistence that cannot be ignored. It is the smell of quiet endurance, of land reclaiming what was briefly held by human hands. Distant thunder rolls low and slow, more felt than heard. It vibrates through the hills beyond the field, fading into silence before echoing again. There is no threat in the sound, only presence, a reminder of the vast storm that continues without concern for the small human dramas below. A broken standard lies twisted in the mud. Its wooden pole is soaked and dark, splintered at the base. The eagle that once crowned it is gone. Rain presses down on it relentlessly, flattening any remaining shape. It will not stand again tonight. It waits instead, patient and still, absorbed into the field like everything else. Near the edge, a horse stands tethered, wet and heavy with rain. Its head dips low, breathing slow and steady. The animal shifts occasionally, one hoof sinking slightly into the mud, then back up. The storm presses on it as it does on the land, neither harming nor helping, just existing. Even the soil itself seems to change under the weight of the storm. The moisture penetrates deeper layers, compacting and smoothing them. Earthworms retreat downward, unseen, adjusting to the saturation. The ground softens and absorbs, erasing the sharper marks of previous struggle. The battlefield has surrendered its urgency. Weapons no longer gleam. Armor no longer promises protection. Everything exists as wet, muted matter, equalized by rain. The land becomes dominant again, the storm its slow, patient agent. Time loses meaning here. There are no hours, no minutes, only continuous, steady rain. Only the slow movement of water through mud and stone, only the quiet respiration of a battlefield return to the earth. And in this ongoing, unbroken stillness, history rests, washed, softened, forgotten in every droplet falling from the sky, leaving only the sound of rain and the whisper of earth reshaping itself beneath. The rain continues, steady and unchanging, as if it will last forever. Its rhythm dominates the senses, a soft percussion that fills the empty spaces left by men and machines long gone from the battlefield. There are no commands, no hurried footsteps, no cries of victory or defeat, only the relentless presence of water falling onto iron, leather, and mud. A broken Roman shield lies near the base of a shallow ridge, half submerged in a growing puddle. Its wooden core is darkened, swollen from the wet, while rivets and metal fittings glint faintly in the dim light. Each raindrop strikes a muted tap and runs off into the surrounding mud. The shield no longer serves its purpose. It has become part of the earth. Nearby, a tattered cloak clings to the ground, flattened under the constant weight of water. Threads loosen and fibers swell, darkening with absorbed rain. The outline of the fabric blurs into the mud beneath, merging indistinguishably with the surrounding earth. Once a protection for a soldier's body, it is now simply an object surrendered to the storm. A gladius lies forgotten in a shallow rut, the edge dulled by mud and water. Rain collects along its length and drips slowly from the tip into the ground. The weapon, once sharp and purposeful, has no meaning here now. Even objects made to endure struggle succumb to the quiet persistence of weather and time. Mist thickens across the field, curling through the remains of trenches and scattered equipment. The fog softens edges, blurring lines between objects. Broken spears, fragments of armor, and discarded standards appear only fleetingly, then vanish as the mist moves. The storm and fog act together, obscuring the battlefield, muting its past into silence. A shallow stream snakes through the center of the field, carrying sediment and small debris along with it. The water moves slowly, following the path carved by prior disturbance. Tiny fragments of wood and leather drift in its current, their shapes altered by the motion. The stream reshapes the earth with patient inevitability, smoothing ridges and filling depressions. The air is heavy with the smell of wet soil, iron, and leather. It is the scent of the battlefield settling into itself, of objects and earth becoming one. Moisture presses against everything, holding the scent close. It is constant, unchanging, a quiet reminder of the storm's ongoing work. Distant thunder rumbles occasionally, low and slow, rolling across the hills beyond. The sound vibrates faintly through the ground, but carries no threat. It is a presence, a gentle punctuation to the endless rhythm of rainfall. A standard pole lies broken and partially submerged, its splintered wood darkened by water. Any fabric once attached is gone, leaving the bare pole to sink gradually into the mud. The battlefield symbols, once proud, are now softened, reduced to indistinguishable shapes under the relentless rain. Even the animals left behind follow the rhythm of the storm. A tethered horse shifts its weight in the mud, ears flicking at distant sounds, breath visible in the cool, damp air. Its coat is soaked, clinging to its body. It waits, patient, unaffected by human concerns. The earth absorbs everything. Rain penetrates deeper layers, compacting soil and smoothing uneven surfaces. Bean trenches collapse slightly, and tracks of wheels and hooves fill with water. Slowly the field is rewritten. Nothing remains as sharp or immediate as it once was. Time loses all meaning in this damp, muted landscape. The night stretches on without distinction, and the battlefield exists only as a place of stillness, a place of stillness. Weapons and armor are no longer tools. They are forms absorbed into earth and water. The rain does not cease. It continues to fall, filling hollows, darkening mud, and softening edges. Each object, each fragment, slowly merges into the land, becoming indistinguishable from it. The battlefield has surrendered completely, reduced to silence, water, and earth. And in this quiet surrender, history itself seems to pause. Nothing moves, yet everything changes. The battlefield becomes timeless, a wet, muted record of what once was, shaped not by men, but by rain, mud, and slow, patient nature. The rain persists through the night, steady and unrelenting, each drop falling with the same quiet insistence as the one before. There is no hurry, no climax, only continuous, patient descent onto the battlefield, the Roman camp beyond, and the surrounding hills. Every surface is damp, every object darkened, every shadow softened by the storm. A broken shield lies face down in a shallow puddle, the curved surface collecting water slowly. Drops strike the metal rim with hollow taps, then flow outward, merging into the surrounding mud. The paint, once bold and symbolic, has bled into brown streaks, fading its story, leaving only the shape, the weight, and the quiet pressure of water. Nearby, a discarded gladius rests in the mud, blade dull and edge obscured by wet earth. Rain gathers along its length, then drips from the tip in a slow, deliberate rhythm. The weapon, once a tool of combat, now exists only in form and reflection, echoing the stillness of the battlefield. A tattered cloak clings to a mound of earth, soaked through. The fibers swell, pressed flat against the mud, the outline of the garment blurred. What once covered a soldier's shoulders now surrenders entirely to gravity and rainfall, its purpose lost, replaced by stillness and damp heaviness. Mist curls low over the field, following the contours of trenches and shallow ditches. Objects appear only as vague shapes in the fog, shields, broken spears, helmet fragments, then vanish as the mist drifts past. The storm obscures everything, blurring sharp lines into gentle curves, muting the echoes of the battle that took place here. A small stream meanders slowly across the field, carrying tiny fragments of wood, leather, and soil along with it. Water moves with patience, filling shallow depressions, smoothing ridges, and softening rough edges. Over time, it erases the traces of urgency, leaving only quiet persistence. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth, iron, and soaked leather. It is dense, grounding, and unchanging. Each inhalation carries the presence of the storm, a gentle insistence on calm, quiet endurance. Thunder rolls distantly, low and unhurried, vibrating through the hills beyond the battlefield. It adds depth to the silence rather than breaking it, a reminder that even the sky moves slowly here. A broken standard pole lies partially submerged, its wood dark and splintered, any remaining fabric gone. Water presses against it, softening its edges, holding it flat against the mud. Symbols of pride, now erased by time and rain, merge quietly into the earth. Even the animals left behind follow the rhythm of the storm. A horse shifts its weight in the mud, damp coat clinging to its form, breathing slow and even. It is neither restless nor fearful. It exists only in patience, a silent companion to the persistent rainfall. The battlefield itself has surrendered. Rain penetrates every layer of soil, smoothing and darkening, slowly erasing footprints, trenches, and tracks left by men and wheels. Earth absorbs everything, reshaping itself in small, imperceptible movements. Time loses meaning here. The night stretches on endlessly, defined only by the steady percussion of water on mud, leather, and metal. Weapons are no longer instruments of war, they are shapes, absorbed into the land by wetness and gravity. The rain does not stop. It continues to fall, filling hollows, darkening mud, and softening edges. Each object slowly merges with the earth, becoming indistinguishable from the landscape. The battlefield is no longer a place of action, but of patient, enduring stillness. And in this calm surrender, history itself seems to pause. Nothing moves, yet everything changes. The field becomes timeless, a record of what once happened, slowly reclaimed by rain, mud, and the quiet, patient work of nature. The rain continues without pause, steady and unhurried, covering every inch of the battlefield in a soft, relentless sheet. Each drop merges into the next, forming a continuous curtain of water that presses upon the earth, the scattered objects, and the few remaining shapes of armor and weaponry. Nothing moves with urgency here. Even the wind itself has softened to a whisper, brushing lightly over wet soil and flattened grass. A helmet lies half submerged in a shallow puddle, rainwater filling it slowly. The interior collects moisture, overflowing in tiny, deliberate drips that vanish into the mud beneath. The metal has grown cold, heavy, and unyielding, a silent witness to the long-past struggle. Once it offered protection, now it simply rests, passive and surrendered to the storm. Nearby, a tattered cloak lies spread across the damp earth. Its threads have swollen with water, darkening to deep brown, edges curling under the steady weight of rainfall. The cloak's shape has softened, its fabric pressed flat against the mud, losing any trace of its former use. Where it once offered warmth and shelter, it now exists as nothing more than wet matter, indistinguishable from the soil beneath. A gladius, partially buried in mud, catches droplets along its length. Each drop travels down the blade in slow rhythm, finally leaving a tiny ripple in a puddle. Its edge, once sharp and deadly, has dulled under rain and soil, its purpose dissolved. The weapon's presence remains only in form and reflection, echoing the calm and stillness of the field. Mist drifts low over the battlefield, curling through trenches, shallow depressions, and uneven ground. Objects rise briefly through the fog, a spear, a fragment of shield, a piece of leather, before vanishing again as the mist moves. Shapes blur, sharp edges soften, and the storm obscures the battlefield in layers of grey, leaving only gentle outlines and the sound of water. Small streams have formed where water collects, winding through the field, carrying sediment, fragments of wood, and remnants of fabric. The streams move slowly, guided by the contours of the land, reshaping the surface in imperceptible ways. Over time, ridges flatten, depressions fill, and the sharp impressions of war are softened into ordinary terrain. The scent of wet earth, iron, and soaked leather thickens in the air. It is dense, grounding, and unchanging. Each inhalation reminds the senses of the storm's presence, of the quiet persistence of nature reclaiming what once belonged to men. Thunder rolls far away, low and slow, vibrating faintly through the hills. It adds depth to the quiet rather than interrupting it. Lightning flickers intermittently behind clouds, illuminating the mist for a brief moment, revealing the soft outlines of abandoned gear, and then fades again into shadow. A broken standard lies near a shallow mound, its wood darkened and soaked through. Any remaining fabric has been claimed by the rain or swept away by wind. It leans weakly, almost as if acknowledging the futility of resistance. Symbols of pride and order are reduced to darkened wood, slowly absorbed into the mud, their significance erased by time and weather. Even the animals left behind participate in this quiet rhythm. A horse stands tethered, shifting its weight gently in the mud, ears twitching occasionally. Its wet coat clings to its body. It breathes slowly, evenly. It exists without concern, moving only as much as necessary, following the pulse of the storm. The battlefield itself has surrendered. Rain penetrates the soil, darkening, softening, erasing impressions. Footprints vanish, trenches slump, wheel tracks fill with water. Slowly, everything is absorbed, rewritten by the persistent work of water and earth. Time has no meaning here. The hours stretch indistinctly, defined only by the constant sound of rainfall and the faint murmur of distant thunder. Weapons and armor have lost their urgency. They exist only as shapes partially submerged, softened by moisture, surrendered to the land. The rain does not cease. It continues, falling evenly across every surface, filling depressions, smoothing edges, and washing history into silence. Each object gradually merges with the landscape, becoming part of the earth itself. And in this patient, unbroken stillness, history pauses. Nothing moves, yet everything changes. The field is timeless now, a wet, muted record of what once occurred, slowly reclaimed by rain, mud, and the enduring, quiet persistence of nature. The rain continues, steady and unrelenting, as if the night itself has been transformed into a soft, watery veil. Each drop falls without urgency, striking earth, metal, and leather with gentle consistency. The battlefield, once alive with chaos and motion, now exists only as damp shapes, softened and subdued by the storm. Every object is weighed down, every shadow blurred, every surface darkened. A helmet rests on its side in a shallow puddle. Rainwater collects inside, rising slowly until it spills over in quiet, deliberate drips that seep into the mud below. The helmet is no longer protection, no longer a symbol of battle. It has become a vessel for water, a passive witness to time and decay. Nearby, a tattered cloak lies flat against the mud. The fibers swell with absorbed water, darkened and heavy. Its shape, once functional and protective, is now softened, edges curling and merging with the soil beneath. What was once purposeful and warm is now simply an object surrendered to the slow persistence of rain. A gladius partially submerged in mud catches droplets along its length. Each drop slides slowly down its blade and falls into a shallow puddle. The edge, once sharp and purposeful, is dulled by moisture and sediment. Its presence remains only in form, echoing the stillness of the field. Mist rolls low across the terrain, curling through trenches and shallow depressions. Shapes appear briefly, spears, fragments of shields, pieces of leather, then vanish again as the fog drifts. Sharp edges soften, and the storm obscures the battlefield in layers of grey, leaving only gentle outlines and the sound of continuous rainfall. Small streams have formed along the slope, carrying tiny fragments of debris. Water follows the contours of the land, smoothing ridges, filling hollows, and slowly erasing traces of human effort. The field is rewritten quietly, almost imperceptibly, reshaped by the slow persistence of nature. The air is thick with the scent of wet earth, iron, and damp leather. The smell is grounding, steady and persistent, a reminder of the storm's presence and of the land reclaiming what was once held by human hands. Thunder rumbles distantly, low and slow, vibrating through the hills beyond the battlefield. Its sound is felt more than heard, adding depth to the hush rather than disrupting it. Lightning flickers briefly behind distant clouds, illuminating mist-shrouded shapes for a moment, before returning the field to shadow. A broken standard lies slanted in the mud. Its wood is soaked, darkened, and splintered. Any remaining fabric has been claimed by rain or carried away by wind. The symbol it once bore has dissolved, leaving only a piece of timber slowly sinking into the earth. Even objects once meant to represent order and pride are absorbed into the field. A horse stands tethered at the edge of the field, wet and heavy, shifting weight slightly in the soft, muddy ground. Its ears flick occasionally. It breathes slowly, evenly, and waits without concern. The storm dictates the rhythm here, not the creatures or the men who once fought. The battlefield itself succumbs completely. Rain penetrates every layer of soil, softening ridges, filling footprints, collapsing shallow trenches. Earth reclaims what was temporarily altered by war, erasing sharp impressions and smoothing uneven surfaces. Time has no meaning in this endless night. Hours stretch indistinctly, defined only by the rhythm of rainfall and the faint, distant roll of thunder. Armor and weapons no longer serve their original purpose. They exist only as shapes, partially submerged, softened, and merged with the land. The rain does not stop. It continues to fall, evenly and steadily, washing history into quiet. Each object slowly blends into the earth, becoming part of the field itself. And in this long, unbroken stillness, history pauses. Nothing moves, yet everything shifts. The battlefield becomes timeless, a record of what once occurred, reclaimed slowly by rain, mud, and the quiet, patient work of nature. The night deepens further, yet the rain continues its patient descent, falling steadily across the battlefield. Every surface is soaked, every shadow softened, every shape blurred by the relentless persistence of the storm. There are no commands, no footsteps, no voices, only the sound of water striking earth, metal, and leather in quiet, measured rhythm. A helmet lies on its side in a shallow pool, water filling the hollow inside. Each drop rises slowly, then overflows in soft, steady drips into the mud below. Once a symbol of protection and battle, it now rests passively, surrendered to time and weather. The metal is cold, heavy, and still, reflecting faint glimmers of distant lightning before fading again into darkness. Nearby, a tattered cloak clings to the ground, flattened under the weight of rain. Its fibers swell, edges curling as threads loosen, blending indistinguishably with the muddy earth beneath. Where it once offered warmth and shelter to a soldier, it now exists solely as wet matter shaped by the storm instead of human hands. Under human hand. A discarded gladius rests partially submerged in soft soil, rainwater running along its blade before falling into a puddle below. Its edge, once sharp and purposeful, has dulled and the weapon has lost all urgency. Only its form remains, silent and inert, echoing the stillness of the surrounding field. Mist curls low over trenches, shallow ditches, and uneven earth, softening the outlines of everything in its path. Broken spears, fragments of armor, and scattered pieces of leather appear briefly, only to vanish again as the fog drifts onward. The battlefield has become a place of uncertainty, muted shapes dissolving into haze. Small streams trace paths through the terrain, carrying fragments of debris along slowly. Water follows the contours of the land, smoothing ridges, filling hollows, and erasing the marks of human activity. Gradually, the battlefield is rewritten, softened into ordinary terrain under the careful work of rain and gravity. The air is heavy with the scent of wet earth, iron, and damp leather. It clings to the senses, persistent and grounding, a reminder that nature is reclaiming what was once shaped and occupied by men. Distant thunder rumbles softly, vibrating faintly through hills and valleys beyond the field. Lightning flashes occasionally, illuminating shapes and mist in brief, ethereal moments before darkness returns. A broken standard lies in the mud, splintered and soaked. Any remaining fabric has been claimed by the storm or wind. Its symbol of pride is gone, reduced to dark wood, slowly sinking into the soil. Even objects meant to convey order and meaning are absorbed by the battlefield, rendered insignificant by water and time. A horse shifts slightly on the edge of the field, coat slick with rain, hooves sinking into soft mud. Its breathing is slow even, It moves only as necessary, following the rhythm dictated by the storm rather than its own instincts. The battlefield itself yields entirely. Footprints fade, trenches collapse, and shallow depressions fill with water. The soil absorbs everything, slowly erasing the marks of conflict and reshaping the land into soft, featureless terrain. Time seems suspended. Hours blend together, marked only by the steady fall of rain and the distant rolling rumble of thunder. Weapons and armor have lost their purpose. They exist now only as shapes partially submerged, softened, and merged into the earth. The rain does not cease. It falls steadily, washing history into quiet, blending each object into the surrounding mud and soil. In this prolonged, unbroken stillness, the battlefield becomes timeless. Nothing moves, yet everything shifts imperceptibly. History rests here, reclaimed by rain, mud, and the patient, quiet persistence of nature. The rain continues to fall, steady and unwavering, draping the battlefield in a soft, persistent haze. Every surface is darkened, every shadow softened, every shape muted by the continuous cascade of water. The air is thick with moisture, and even the faintest sound seems swallowed by the storm. Nothing moves with urgency. All is still, absorbed into the quiet rhythm of rain. A helmet rests half buried in a shallow depression, its interior slowly filling with water. Each drop adds to the quiet weight, overflowing gently into the surrounding mud. Once a symbol of protection and battle, it now exists only as an inert object, surrendered to the patient work of the storm. The metal is cold, heavy, and still, reflecting fleeting glimmers of distant lightning before fading back into shadow. Nearby, a tattered cloak lies flat against the wet earth. Its fibers swell and darken as they absorb water, edges curling and blending with the mud beneath. What once covered and protected a soldier is now nothing more than damp fabric, passive and reshaped entirely by the storm. The cloak sags under its own weight, flattened against the soil. A discarded gladius lies partially submerged in soft ground, water running along its length in a slow, continuous rhythm. Its edge, once sharp and lethal, has dulled under rain and mud. The weapon's form remains, but it no longer carries intent. It exists only as a silent reflection of the stillness around it. Mist curls low across the field, filling shallow trenches and following the contours of the land. Broken spears, fragments of shields, and scattered leather appear only briefly through the haze before vanishing once more. Edges soften, details fade, and the battlefield itself becomes uncertain, its past obscured by layers of fog and rainfall. Streams of water thread slowly across the terrain, carrying sediment, twigs, and fragments of gear. The current is gentle, guided only by the slope of the land. Over time, ridges flatten, hollows fill, and the sharp impressions of battle are smoothed into ordinary contours. The storm reshapes the earth quietly, erasing traces of human struggle. The smell of wet earth, iron, and soaked leather grows heavier as the night continues. It clings to the senses, grounding, insistent, a reminder of the slow reclamation of the field by nature. Every breath carries the presence of water and soil, a constant reminder that the land endures while men and their deeds fade. Thunder rumbles distantly, low and slow, felt more than heard. Lightning occasionally flashes, illuminating mist-shrouded shapes and revealing the faint outlines of abandoned equipment for a brief moment before darkness returns. Even the sky seems subdued, moving without urgency. A broken standard lies at the edge of the field, splintered and soaked through. Any remaining cloth has been claimed by wind or rain. The symbol it once bore has dissolved, leaving only a darkened pole slowly sinking into the mud. Objects of order and pride, like weapons and banners, are absorbed into the land, rendered insignificant by time and the storm's persistence. A horse shifts slightly where it stands at the perimeter, coat slick with rain, hooves sinking into mud. Its breathing is steady. It moves only as necessary, following the rhythm of the storm rather than its own instincts. The battlefield has surrendered entirely. Rain penetrates the soil, softening ridges, filling footprints, and collapsing shallow trenches. Earth absorbs everything, erasing all signs of activity, returning the land to its quiet, ordinary state. Time loses all meaning. Hours blend together, measured only by the soft percussion of water and the distant roll of thunder. Armor and weapons have lost their purpose. They exist only as forms, partially submerged and slowly merging with the earth. The rain does not stop. It continues to fall, washing history into quiet, blending each object into the mud and soil. And in this still, patient surrender, the battlefield becomes timeless. Nothing moves, yet everything shifts imperceptibly. History rests here, absorbed by rain, mud, and the quiet, enduring work of nature. The night drifts on, unhurried, as rain falls steadily across the battlefield. Each drop lands with quiet persistence, striking earth, metal, and leather alike. The storm shows no urgency, only continuity, and the land responds in kind, softening, darkening, and smoothing every surface beneath its influence. Shadows lose their edges, and shapes once sharp with purpose now appear muted and indistinct. A helmet lies on its side in a shallow puddle, slowly filling with water. Each drop adds to the quiet weight until it overflows gently into the surrounding mud. Once a vessel of protection, it is now passive, surrendered entirely to the storm. The metal is cold, heavy and still, reflecting faint glimmers of distant lightning that disappear almost immediately. Nearby, a tattered cloak clings to the earth. Its fibers swell and darken, edges curling as threads loosen and merge with the mud beneath. Where it once sheltered a soldier, it now exists as damp fabric, reshaped entirely by water and gravity. The cloak sags under the weight of moisture, flattened and absorbed into the soil. A discarded gladius lies partially submerged in soft ground. Rain travels along its length in small rivulets, dripping slowly into puddles below. Its edge, once sharp and purposeful, is dulled, its form reduced to a quiet reflection of the stillness around it. The weapon's presence is no longer active, it exists only in shape, shadow, and memory. Mist curls low over the field, weaving through trenches and shallow depressions. Broken spears, shield fragments, and scattered pieces of leather emerge briefly from the fog before vanishing again. Edges soften, details fade, and the battlefield becomes uncertain, obscured by the layers of rain and mist. Small streams wind their way across the terrain, carrying sediment, wood and fragments of fabric. Water follows the contours of the land with slow, deliberate persistence. Gradually, ridges flatten, hollows fill, and the impressions left by men and animals are softened, reshaped and reclaimed by nature. The air is heavy with the scent of wet soil, iron, and damp leather. It clings to the senses, grounding and insistent. Every breath carries the presence of the storm, a reminder that the land endures long after the struggle has ended. Distant thunder rolls softly across the hills, low and unhurried. Lightning flashes intermittently, illuminating the mist-shrouded field in pale, ethereal moments before darkness returns. The sky itself seems subdued, moving without haste. A broken standard lies partially submerged in mud, splintered and soaked. Any remaining cloth has been claimed by wind or rain. Its symbol of pride is gone, leaving only darkened wood slowly sinking into the soil. Objects once meant to convey order and power are absorbed by the field, diminished by time and the storm's quiet persistence. A horse shifts slightly at the edge of the battlefield, its coat slick with rain, hooves sinking into soft mud. Its breathing is steady, calm. It moves only as necessary, following the rhythm of the storm, not its own instincts. The battlefield has yielded entirely. Rain penetrates soil and sediment, softening ridges, filling footprints, and collapsing shallow trenches. Earth reclaims what was temporarily altered by war, erasing marks of conflict and returning the land to quiet equilibrium. Time itself loses significance. Hours blend together, measured only by the steady fall of water and the distant low rumble of thunder. Weapons and armor have lost their purpose. They exist now only as shapes, partially submerged, slowly merging into the earth. The rain does not stop. It continues to fall, washing history into silence, blending every object into the mud and soil, leaving nothing untouched. And in this long, patient stillness, the battlefield becomes timeless. Nothing moves, yet everything changes. History rests here, reclaimed by rain, mud, and the enduring quiet work of nature. The night stretches on, uninterrupted, as rain continues its steady descent across the battlefield. Each drop lands with soft persistence, soaking earth, metal, and leather alike. There is no hurry, no drama, only the quiet, unending rhythm of water pressing gently into the soil, darkening every surface, muting every edge, softening every shape. A helmet lies on its side in a shallow puddle, slowly filling with rainwater. Each droplet adds weight until it spills gently over the rim into the surrounding mud. The metal, once a symbol of protection and strength, now rests inert, cold and heavy. Reflections of distant lightning flicker across its curved surface before vanishing back into darkness. Nearby, a tattered cloak sags under the weight of water. Its fibers have swollen, edges curling as threads loosen and merge with the mud beneath. Once a covering for a soldier, it is now passive fabric, flattened and reshaped entirely by the storm. The cloak seems to breathe with the land, sinking slowly into earth and water. A discarded gladius lies partially submerged in soft, dark mud. Rainwater trickles along its blade and drips into puddles below. The edge, once sharp and deadly, is dulled. Its presence remains only as a quiet form, a reflection of the stillness surrounding it, absorbed into the patient rhythm of the field. Mist rolls low across the terrain, curling through trenches, depressions, and flattened earth. Shapes emerge briefly, broken spears, fragments of shields, pieces of leather, then vanish again as the fog drifts. Everything softens, details fade, and the battlefield itself becomes uncertain, obscured in layers of rain and mist. Shallow streams flow slowly across the land, carrying sediment, twigs, and fragments of fabric. Water follows the contours of the battlefield, filling hollows and smoothing ridges. The landscape gradually reshapes itself, erasing traces of human activity. The storm is quiet, deliberate, rewriting the field in small, imperceptible movements. The air is heavy with the scent of wet soil, iron, and damp leather. It fills every breath, grounding and insistent, a reminder of the slow reclamation of the battlefield by nature. Every inhalation carries the persistence of water and earth, as if the land itself breathes beneath the rain. Thunder rumbles distantly, low and slow, more felt than heard. Lightning occasionally illuminates the mist, revealing fleeting outlines of abandoned armor and weapons before darkness returns. Even the sky is subdued, moving without urgency, blending seamlessly with the muted landscape below. A broken standard lies at the edge of the field, soaked and splintered. Any remaining cloth has been claimed by the wind or rain. Its symbol of authority and pride is gone, leaving only darkened wood slowly sinking into the mud. Objects once charged with meaning are absorbed into the earth, rendered indistinct by time and weather. A horse shifts slightly where it stands, coat slick with rain, hooves sinking into soft mud. Its breathing is steady even. It moves only as necessary, following the rhythm of the storm, indifferent to the past events that scar the land. The battlefield has surrendered fully. Rain penetrates the soil, softening ridges, filling footprints and collapsing shallow trenches. Earth reclaims what was temporarily altered by war, smoothing sharp impressions and returning the field to quiet equilibrium. Time loses meaning. Hours blend together, marked only by the continuous percussion of rainfall and the distant roll of thunder. Weapons and armor have lost their purpose, existing now only as shapes, partially submerged, gradually merging into the land. The rain does not stop, it continues to fall, washing history into silence, blending every object into the mud and soil. The field, once a place of urgency and struggle, is now patient, calm, and timeless. In this unbroken stillness, history itself rests. Nothing moves, yet everything shifts imperceptibly. The battlefield is reclaimed, absorbed by rain, mud, and the enduring, quiet persistence of nature. The night deepens and the rain continues, falling with the same steady, unhurried rhythm that has marked hours already past. Each drop lands softly on the battlefield, soaking the soil, darkening the scattered armor and weapons, and blurring shapes that were once sharp and defined. There is no urgency here, only the quiet, unbroken rhythm of water pressing against earth and metal, softening every surface. A helmet lies half buried in a shallow pool, slowly filling with water. Droplets accumulate inside until they spill over gently into the surrounding mud. The metal is cold and heavy, no longer a vessel of protection or symbol of battle, merely an object surrendered to the patient storm. Faint flashes of distant lightning reflect off its curved surface before fading back into darkness. Nearby, a tattered cloak sags under the constant weight of rain. Its fibers swell and darken as they absorb water, edges curling and merging into the soil beneath. Once used to protect and cover a soldier, it now exists only as damp fabric, flattened and reshaped entirely by nature's quiet persistence. A discarded gladius lies partially submerged in soft, wet mud. Rain trickles along its blade, dripping slowly into puddles below. Its edge, once sharp and deadly, is dulled, and its presence now exists only as form and reflection, a quiet echo of past action, absorbed into the stillness of the field. Mist drifts low across the battlefield, curling through trenches, shallow depressions, and uneven ground. Shapes emerge briefly, spears, broken shields, fragments of leather, only to vanish again as the fog moves. Edges soften, details fade, and the battlefield itself becomes uncertain, blurred beneath layers of rain and mist. Small streams have formed where water collects, winding slowly through the terrain. Sediment, fragments of wood and tattered pieces of fabric drift along the current, carried by gravity alone. Over time, ridges flatten, hollows fill, and the harsh impressions of battle are smoothed into ordinary contours. The storm rewrites the land quietly and imperceptibly. The air is heavy with the scent of wet earth, iron, and soaked leather. It clings to the senses, grounding and insistent, reminding all that the battlefield, once alive with human endeavor, is being reclaimed by nature. Each breath carries the quiet presence of water and soil. Distant thunder rolls softly across the hills, low and unhurried, more felt than heard. Lightning flickers occasionally, illuminating the mist-shrouded field in fleeting, pale bursts before darkness returns. Even the sky seems subdued, moving without haste, blending seamlessly with the muted landscape below. A broken standard lies slanted in the mud, wood splintered and darkened, any remaining cloth claimed by wind or rain. Its symbol of pride and authority has been erased, leaving only a dark, sodden pole slowly sinking into the soil. Objects that once carried meaning are now absorbed by the land, diminished by time and weather. A horse stands at the edge of the field, shifting slightly in the soft, muddy ground. Its coat is slick with rain, hooves sinking gently into the saturated earth. Breathing slow and steady, the animal moves only as necessary, following the rhythm of the storm, unconcerned with the past battles that scar the land. The battlefield itself has surrendered completely. Rain penetrates the soil, softening ridges, filling footprints, and collapsing shallow trenches. The earth reclaims all that was temporarily altered, smoothing sharp impressions, and returning the field to quiet equilibrium. Time loses all meaning. Hours stretch indistinctly, defined only by the unbroken sound of rainfall and the occasional distant rumble of thunder. Weapons and armor have lost their purpose. They exist now as forms partially submerged, slowly merging with the earth. The rain does not stop. It continues, washing history into quiet, blending every object into the soil and mud. What was once urgent and alive is now calm, patient, and timeless. In this long, unbroken stillness, history rests. Nothing moves, yet everything changes imperceptibly. The battlefield has been reclaimed, absorbed by rain, mud, and the enduring quiet persistence of nature. The night stretches on, unbroken, as rain continues its patient, steady descent. Each drop falls with gentle persistence, striking earth, metal, and leather, darkening every surface and softening every edge. The battlefield, once alive with the energy of combat, now exists only as damp shapes and muted forms. There is no hurry, no urgency, only the continuous rhythm of water pressing upon the land. A helmet rests sideways in a shallow puddle, slowly filling with rainwater. Droplets collect inside until they spill quietly into the mud. Once a vessel of protection and symbol of battle, it now lies inert, surrendered entirely to the storm. Faint glimmers of distant lightning reflect across its curved surface before fading again into darkness. Nearby, a tattered cloak lies flat against the wet earth. Fibers swell, darken, and edges curl as threads loosen, merging with the mud beneath. Where it once shielded a soldier, it now exists solely as damp fabric, reshaped and softened entirely by the persistent rain. The cloak sags under the weight of water, flattened into the soil. A discarded gladius rests partially submerged in soft mud. Rainwater travels along its length, dripping slowly into shallow puddles. Its edge, once sharp and deadly, has dulled. Aim dead. The weapon now exists only as a form and shadow, echoing the stillness of the surrounding field, absorbed into the quiet rhythm of the storm. Mist drifts low across the terrain, curling through trenches and shallow depressions. Broken spears, fragments of shields, and pieces of leather emerge briefly, then vanish as the fog moves onward. Edges blur, details fade, and the battlefield itself becomes uncertain, softened beneath layers of rain and mist. Shallow streams trace paths across the land, carrying sediment, small pieces of wood, and fragments of fabric. Water follows the contours of the battlefield, filling hollows and smoothing ridges. The field gradually reshapes itself, erasing traces of human activity. The storm is quiet, deliberate, transforming the earth imperceptibly. The air is heavy with the scent of wet soil, iron, and soaked leather. It fills every breath, grounding and insistent, a reminder that nature quietly reclaims the battlefield. Every inhalation carries the persistence of rain and earth, as if the land itself is breathing beneath the storm. Distant thunder rolls slowly, low and soft, more felt than heard. Lightning flashes intermittently, illuminating the mist in fleeting, ethereal moments before fading back into darkness. Even the sky is subdued, moving without urgency, blending with the muted landscape below. A broken standard lies in the mud, splintered and soaked. Any remaining cloth has been claimed by rain or wind. Its symbol of pride and authority has dissolved, leaving only darkened wood slowly sinking into the soil. Objects once charged with meaning are absorbed into the land, rendered indistinct by time and weather. A horse shifts slightly at the edge of the field, coat slick with rain, hooves sinking into soft mud. Its breathing is steady, calm, and deliberate. It moves only as necessary, following the rhythm of the storm, indifferent to the past events that scar the land. The battlefield has yielded completely. Rain penetrates every layer of soil, softening ridges, filling footprints, and collapsing shallow trenches. Earth reclaims all that was temporarily altered by conflict, smoothing sharp impressions and returning the land to quiet equilibrium. Time loses meaning. Hours blend together, measured only by the constant sound of rainfall and distant, low thunder. Weapons and armor have lost their purpose, existing now only as shapes partially submerged, gradually merging with the earth. The rain does not cease. It continues to fall, washing history into quiet, blending each object into mud and soil. What was once urgent and alive is now calm, patient, and timeless. In this long, unbroken stillness, history rests. Nothing moves, yet everything changes. The battlefield has been reclaimed, absorbed by rain, mud, and the enduring, quiet persistence of nature. The night has grown older, though nothing announces the passing of hours except the unbroken fall of rain. It continues steadily, without drama, without pause, stitching sky to earth with countless silver threads. The battlefield lies beneath it, fully surrendered now, every surface soaked, every edge rounded, every trace of urgency dissolved into damp stillness. Water has gathered in wider pools across the lower ground. They no longer ripple sharply. The surface trembles gently with each drop, a constant shimmer that never quite settles. Reflections of cloud and darkness blur together, broken only by the faint outlines of abandoned shapes half hidden beneath the surface. A shield, nearly submerged, tilts slightly as the mud beneath it shifts. Rain slides across its curved face in smooth, uninterrupted paths. The painted emblem that once marked allegiance is almost entirely washed away, reduced to faint stains of color that bleed into brown. It no longer represents anything, it simply rests. Nearby, a spear shaft lies diagonally across a shallow stream that has formed overnight. Water flows around it, dividing briefly, then rejoining on the other side. The wood darkens as it absorbs more moisture, fibers swelling subtly. The stream does not resist the obstacle. It adapts, reshaping its course by inches. The air feels cooler now. The storm has settled into a deeper quiet, as though even the thunder has grown tired. Only the rain remains consistent, soft, steady, endless. The scent of wet soil is richer than before, layered with iron and softened leather. It hangs low over the field, dense and grounding. A helmet that once lay exposed is now almost fully claimed by mud. Only the upper curve remains visible, beaded with droplets. Visible, beaded with drops. Each drop joins another, slides downward, and disappears into the earth. The process is slow but certain. By morning, even that curve may be gone. Mist drifts in slow currents close to the ground. It moves like breath across the battlefield, rising slightly, then settling again. Objects appear and fade within it, broken wood, fragments of armor, the faint ridge of a collapsed trench. Nothing stays clear for long. At the edge of the field, the horse remains where it stood before. Rain streaks along its flank, tracing quiet lines through its coat, weans through its coat. It lowers its head slightly, conserving warmth, breathing slow and even. The animal's presence feels calm, almost anchored, as if it understands that stillness is the only sensible response to such a night. Small channels of water continue to carve through the softening soil. They connect puddles, deepen ruts, and smooth the harsh geometry left by men and wheels. Footprints are nearly invisible now. Trenches have slumped into shallow curves. The battlefield's sharp narrative has softened into abstraction. There are no more flashes of lightning for flashes of lightning. The sky holds a uniform darkness, heavy but stable. Rain falls through it in steady lines, uninterrupted. The storm no longer feels violent. It feels permanent. A length of leather strap, once part of armor, lies stretched thin across the mud. It absorbs water until it becomes pliable and dark, indistinguishable from the ground beneath. Metal buckles attached to it no longer gleam. They sit dull and quiet, pressed into soil. The field is quieter than it has ever been. Not silent, never silent, but filled with a single continuous sound, rainfall. It washes over everything evenly, without judgment, without preference. Roman and enemy, weapon and banner, trench and hillside, everything receives the same gentle persistence. Time has flattened completely. There is no sense of before or after, no anticipation of dawn, only this moment. Repeated endlessly in the rhythm of falling water, the battlefield has ceased to be a place of memory. It has become to rain again, wet, heavy breathing slowly beneath the sky. History is no longer sharp here. It is blurred, soaked and sinking, and still the rain continues, patient and unwavering, carrying the last clear traces of conflict downward into the earth, where they will rest unseen beneath layers of soil and silence. The rain has been falling for so long that it no longer feels like weather. It feels like a presence, steady, quiet, eternal. The battlefield is no longer a battlefield in the mind. It is simply land again, open ground beneath a dark Roman sky. The puddles have merged into shallow sheets of water that stretch across the lowest parts of the field. They reflect nothing clearly. The sky above is too heavy with cloud, too thick with mist. When droplets strike the surface, they vanish instantly into the greater whole, leaving only widening circles that disappear before fully forming. The mud has deepened. It holds everything in place now. Shields, swords, fragments of wood, splintered wheels. Nothing shifts anymore. The earth has claimed its share and closed its grip. A Roman standard lies flat in the distance, the once proud eagle pressed into soaked soil. Its metal wings are dulled, no longer gleaming, no longer catching light. Rain gathers in the grooves of its design and trickles downward in thin streams. The symbol that once led men forward now rests without movement, without purpose. It does not resist. Wind passes lightly across the plain, barely strong enough to be called wind. It moves the mist in slow waves. It nudges the edges of cloaks and fabric. Nay, it hums softly through the broken shafts of spears planted at odd angles in the ground. The sound is low and hollow, not eerie, just empty. The air is colder now. Not sharply cold, but heavy with damp chill that settles into everything. Stone, leather, metal, all have surrendered to the same temperature. Differences fade when rain falls long enough. Water drips from the edge of a dented shield, one measured drop at a time. The rhythm is patient. Drip, pause, drip. The sound blends into the wider rainfall, indistinguishable except to the quietest ear. Somewhere beyond the field, far beyond sight, a river swells from the storm. Its waters rise slowly, fed by countless drops that began here. The battlefield contributes without knowing. The rain connects all ground to all ground. A fallen helmet has filled completely with water. The surface trembles as droplets strike it. Then a thin line spills over the rim, flowing gently down into the mud below. It repeats this cycle without hurry, without change. There are no voices now, not even imagined ones. No echoes remain. The night has erased them. Rain is the only language spoken here. The mist thickens briefly, then thins again, revealing the softened outlines of earthworks once carved with urgency. Trenches have collapsed into gentle slopes. The sharp edges of strategy have rounded into natural curves. The land is forgetting the straight lines imposed upon it. The horse at the edge of the field has moved farther away, a shadow fading into darker shadow. Its presence is quieter than before. Soon even that will be gone. Nature reclaims not through force, but through patience. Hours have passed, or perhaps only moments. It is impossible to measure time in such steady repetition. The storm has removed the sense of sequence. There is only continuation. Rain gathers along the blade of a gladius half buried in mud. It slides along the metal's length, following its straight design, and then disappears into soil. The weapon's edge no longer cuts anything. It merely channels water downward. The clouds shift slightly overhead, not breaking, not clearing, just moving with slow intention. The darkness lightens by the smallest degree, not dawn yet, but the suggestion that dawn exists somewhere beyond the storm. The battlefield breathes, not literally, but in feeling. Water soaks, drains, settles. The ground absorbs. Small rivulets form and dissolve. Everything is engaged in quiet, natural work. Nothing dramatic happens, no final thunder, no sudden silence, only steady rain, and then almost imperceptibly the rhythm changes, the droplets grow finer, lighter. The heavy fall softens into a gentle whisper against earth and metal. The pools stop expanding, the streams slow. The sky remains grey, but less oppressive. The horizon begins to separate from the clouds above it. Shapes become clearer. Broken wheels, discarded shields, scattered spears. They are no longer blurred entirely by mist. Morning approaches without announcement. The battlefield, washed and quiet, lies still beneath the thinning rain. It no longer tells the story of clashing armies, it tells only of land beneath weather. Soon, when the rain finally stops, birds will test the silence. Wind will dry what it can, sunlight will reach across the plain and reveal what remains. But for now, in this final stretch of night, the rain continues softly, not to erase, not to cleanse, but simply because rain falls when it must. The Roman battlefield rests under its steady touch, transformed from noise into stillness, from conflict into quieter, and as the last gentle drops descend through the dim grey air, the world feels wide, calm, and untroubled, as if war were only a brief interruption in the endless rhythm of rain.